Last year, a neighbor of mine landed a six-figure job and celebrated the way many people do today. Within months, a brand new Tesla appeared in his driveway. It looked like the perfect symbol of success. Shiny paint, quiet electric motor, the kind of purchase that tells the world, "You're finally doing well." 3 months later, he knocked on my door, asking if he could borrow my lawnmower because he couldn't afford to repair his own. That moment wasn't about irresponsibility. It was about math. And more specifically, it was about a number almost nobody tracks. For most people, the real financial problem isn't income. It's the absence of something far more important: a gap. Let me explain. If you earn $50,000 per year and spend $40,000, the difference is $10,000. That $10,000 is your margin. It's the raw material from which wealth is built. Now imagine someone earning $200,000 but spending every dollar that comes in. Their gap is zero. Despite earning 4 times as much, they are not getting wealthier. They are simply processing more money. Income is how much money passes through your life. The gap is how much of your life you actually get to keep. And here's the uncomfortable insight most people never hear. A higher income does not make you rich if your life is designed to consume it. A raise without restraint is just inflation with better branding. That's why people earning real money still feel broke on the 27th of the month. This is the metric most people ignore. They track salary, they track net worth, they track credit scores. But the number that quietly determines your financial trajectory is the space between what enters your life and what leaves it, your gap. And modern life is built to erase it. The hidden force that eats your gap. There is a principle in economics often linked to Parkinson's law, originally described by historian C. Northcote Parkinson. It observed that work expands to fill the time available to complete it. In personal finance, something eerily similar happens. Spending expands to consume available income. Get a raise and suddenly your apartment feels too small. Receive a promotion and a nicer car begins to feel reasonable. A bonus hits your account, and the renovations you've been thinking about suddenly feel justified. Lifestyle creep is one of the most powerful financial forces people underestimate, and this is where high-income people get fooled. According to the U.S. Bureau of Economic Analysis, the personal saving rate in the United States has hovered around roughly 3.5% to 4.5% in recent data, meaning the typical household keeps only a small slice of what it earns. That pattern barely changes across income levels. A 2023 Lending Club study found that 52% of households earning between $100,000 and $150,000 report living paycheck to paycheck. Even among households earning over $200,000, roughly one-third say the same thing. In other words, living paycheck to paycheck on six figures is not rare. It's common. Higher income does not automatically produce wealth. It simply increases the size of the treadmill. You move more money, but you don't necessarily keep more of it. In business terms, that's like running a company with $10 million in revenue but almost no profit margin. Eventually, something breaks. The 3 biggest holes in most budgets. When people try to save money, they often start with the wrong targets. The daily coffee, the occasional streaming subscription. Those things rarely determine whether someone builds wealth. The real financial pressure usually comes from 3 massive categories: housing, transportation, food. These aren't tiny leaks. They are structural costs that dominate most budgets. Let's start with transportation because this one surprises people the most. The true cost of cars. Cars are one of the most underestimated wealth drains in modern life. According to the American Automobile Association, the average cost of owning and operating a new vehicle reached about $12,297 per year in 2024. Once depreciation, insurance, fuel, maintenance, and financing are included. Over a working lifetime, many people will spend somewhere between $400,000 and $600,000 on vehicles. Think about that number for a second. $500,000. That amount could fund decades of retirement income or build serious investment wealth. Instead, much of it disappears into assets that lose value the moment they leave the dealership. One simple change can dramatically widen your financial gap. Keep vehicles longer. Driving a car for 10 years instead of trading it every 3 can free hundreds of dollars per month. That's not deprivation. That's just refusing to treat depreciation as a lifestyle upgrade. Most people don't upgrade because they need more. They upgrade because the new income makes the old life feel emotionally embarrassing. Housing, the silent budget killer. Housing is more complicated because everyone's circumstances are different. But the pattern appears everywhere. Income increases. Housing costs follow it upward. Someone earning $70,000 may spend around 30% of their take-home pay on housing. Then their income rises to $90,000, and suddenly they start looking at apartments or homes that consume 40% or even 50% of their income. Technically, they can afford it. The bank approves the mortgage. Their friends celebrate the upgrade, but their financial gap shrinks. They may now have granite countertops and hardwood floors, but their margin for saving, investing, and building long-term freedom has quietly collapsed. One of the most powerful financial rules you can adopt is surprisingly simple. Cap your fixed costs. Decide that even if your income grows, your core lifestyle will not automatically expand with it. When income rises and housing stays flat, the gap begins to widen dramatically. That's when wealth starts accelerating. The restaurant trap. Food is the third category, but the real issue isn't groceries. It's restaurants and takeout. Data from the U.S. Department of Agriculture shows that Americans now spend about 9% of their food budget eating away from home. In many households, that translates into $600 to $900 per month on restaurants. That doesn't mean eliminating restaurants entirely. It means recognizing the leverage. Cooking at home 4 nights per week instead of 2 can easily add several $1,000s to your annual gap. And unlike extreme budgeting, it doesn't require living miserably. Defense is not enough. Controlling expenses protects your financial foundation, but it's only half the strategy. The real power appears when income increases without lifestyle expansion. I call this the invisible raise strategy. Whenever new money appears, a raise, a bonus, freelance income, a side project payment, it never enters your lifestyle. It goes directly to investments or savings. Your daily life stays the same. Same apartment, same car, same habits, but your financial margin explodes. Why lifestyle creep happens? Behavioral economists describe a phenomenon called hedonic adaptation. Humans quickly adjust to improved circumstances. A nicer apartment feels exciting for a few weeks, then it becomes normal. A new car feels luxurious for a few months. Then it becomes expected. Soon the upgraded lifestyle becomes the baseline, and once that baseline rises, it rarely moves back down. But if new income never enters your lifestyle in the first place, adaptation never occurs. Your habits stay stable, and your gap grows dramatically. A real-world case study. Consider a real example that illustrates this perfectly. A marketing manager I once spoke with increased her salary from $80,000 to $105,000 after changing companies. On paper, that looks like a life-changing improvement. But within 1 year, she moved into a more expensive apartment, upgraded her car lease, and started traveling more often, because the new income made those choices feel justified. 12 months later, her financial stress was almost identical to what it had been before the raise. The money came in, and lifestyle creep absorbed it. She told me something that stuck with me. I thought the raise would change my life, but my life just changed to match the raise. That sentence captures the entire problem. The reward fallacy. This brings us to one of the most dangerous psychological traps in personal finance. The reward fallacy. It sounds like this. You've been disciplined, so you deserve something nice. You've been driving the older car, so you deserve an upgrade. You've been budgeting carefully, so you deserve a trip. That single purchase often becomes a Trojan horse. It introduces a new identity, an identity with more expensive habits. Soon the upgraded lifestyle becomes permanent, and the gap disappears. People who successfully widen their financial gap treat raises differently. They treat new income as fuel for investments rather than permission for lifestyle upgrades. Turning the gap into wealth. A growing gap is powerful, but only if it is used properly. The money should not simply sit in a savings account earning minimal interest. It needs to be converted into productive assets. For most people, this means diversified index funds, real estate investments, or ownership in businesses. The exact vehicle matters less than the principle. Your gap becomes capital. Capital becomes income-producing assets, and those assets eventually produce additional income. When the gap starts feeding itself. Suppose someone builds a $15,000 annual gap and invests it consistently. Historically, the U.S. stock market has delivered roughly 10% average annual returns before inflation over long periods, which translates to about 6 to 7% after inflation depending on the time period. Even assuming a conservative long-term return, the compounding begins quickly. In the first year, that $15,000 may produce about $1,000 to $1,200 in returns. In the second year, the base grows. By the third year, the portfolio could be producing more than $2,500 annually. At that point, something powerful happens. Your investments start contributing to your gap. The system begins feeding itself. After a decade of consistent investing, the income produced by your investments may exceed what your gap produced in the early years. Money starts working for you while you sleep. The freedom number. There is another concept hidden inside the gap strategy, your financial independence number, sometimes called the freedom number. This is the amount of invested assets required to support your lifestyle indefinitely. If your lifestyle costs around $40,000 per year, many financial planning models suggest roughly $1.0 million to $1. $0.3 million invested could sustain that level of spending using common withdrawal guidelines around 3.9% to 4%. The key insight here is simple. Your freedom number is determined by spending, not income. If your spending rises to $80,000 per year, your freedom number roughly doubles. Lifestyle inflation doesn't just slow wealth creation, it moves the finish line farther away. Why moderate income earners sometimes win. This is why moderate earners sometimes achieve financial independence faster than high-income professionals. Imagine two people, a doctor earning $300,000 but spending $280,000 annually, and a teacher earning $60,000 while spending $35,000. The doctor might need over $7 million invested to maintain their lifestyle. The teacher might need less than $900,000. Despite the massive income difference, the teacher often reaches financial independence sooner because their gap is larger relative to spending. The true value of the gap. Every dollar inside your gap is doing something powerful. It is buying freedom, not just retirement freedom decades from now. Immediate flexibility. The wider the gap becomes, the less dependent you are on your next paycheck. That flexibility allows you to change careers, start businesses, take risks, or walk away from toxic environments. The gap is leverage. It's optionality. It's the difference between being controlled by your lifestyle and designing your life intentionally. The time equation. Most people imagine financial freedom requires a massive windfall, but the math is simpler than that. If your gap is $20,000 annually, and you need $100,000 to cover 5 years of living expenses at your current lifestyle, then 5 years of disciplined saving buys half a decade of autonomy. 5 years where you could retrain for a different career, launch a business, travel, or spend time with family. Money becomes a mechanism for converting labor into time, and time is the only resource that never regenerates. The uncomfortable reality. Now here's the part nobody wants to hear. Many people spend their entire lives widening someone else's gap. Car payments widen the lender's margin. Credit card interest widens the bank's margin. Rent payments widen the landlord's margin. People work 40, 50, 60 hours per week, generating financial margin for everyone except themselves. The shift happens when you reverse that dynamic and treat your personal finances the way businesses treat profit margins. Businesses do not survive on 2% margins. Yet many households operate exactly that way. The trade-off. Building a large gap requires a skill that modern culture rarely celebrates. Being willing to look less wealthy than you could look, driving an older car, living in a modest apartment, ignoring status signals designed for social media rather than financial stability. The difference between appearing wealthy and actually becoming wealthy is invisible in the short term, but enormous in the long run. A necessary reality. Check. Now, obviously, some costs are not lifestyle creep. Rent inflation is real. Childcare is real. Medical bills are real. The point is not that every expense is a character flaw. The point is that many people add voluntary fixed costs on top of already difficult ones. And those choices quietly erase the gap that could have built their freedom. The simple exercise. If you want to know where you stand, try something simple. Open your bank statements from last month. Add up everything you earned after taxes, then add up everything you spent. The difference is your gap. If you earned $5,000 and spent $4,800, your gap is $200. At that rate, each year of work buys only a few weeks of financial independence. You now have two levers. Increase income or reduce expenses. Pick one lever and attack it for the next 90 days. Not forever, just 90 days. If you choose income, every additional dollar goes directly into investments. If you choose expenses, remove one large cost that is shrinking your gap. The 30-day gap challenge. For the next 30 days, calculate your gap every week. Income minus spending equals gap. Track it the same way businesses track profit margins. Watch how it changes your thinking, because once you start seeing money as the raw material of freedom, something shifts in your brain. Money stops feeling like something that flows through your hands and disappears. It becomes leverage. Every dollar inside your gap becomes a soldier working for your independence. And the strange thing is, once people experience that shift, they rarely go back. They stop chasing the appearance of wealth and start chasing the margin that actually creates it. Because in the end, wealth is not defined by how much money enters your life. It's defined by how much of that money you keep long enough to buy back your time. And that number, the gap, is the quiet engine behind everything. Thanks for watching.